What if starting tomorrow, oil completely disappeared? Not expensive, not scarce, gone. Completely and permanently gone. What would happen to people? What would happen to the entire world? You wake up, the price of gas hits you immediately. You wince at every refuel. You wince at every ride. You feel the weight of it in your wallet right away. You can no longer afford this kind of price spike. Food is getting more expensive. Other goods are slowly rising too. So you do what most people do. You close your eyes. You tell yourself tomorrow will be better. But the next morning when you wake up, oil is not just expensive, it is gone. Forever. And now one question rises with you. What happens to people and to the entire world when oil disappears? Will we finally achieve a pollution-free world? Or is this the beginning of another catastrophic collapse? Oil is one of the most important natural resources on the planet. Almost every movement of modern life is connected to it. Vehicles, electricity generation, plastics, medicine, countless products people use every single day. Crude oil was formed from the remains of tiny organisms like plankton and algae. These organisms lived millions of years ago. Over an incomprehensibly long period of time, they were buried beneath the earth and sea, compressed by heat and pressure, until they became oil. Because it takes millions of years to form, it is considered a finite resource. That means it runs out, and it cannot simply be replaced. Every day we use oil, it slowly decreases. According to estimates, there is enough oil left to last a few more decades. We expect a long period where we can still fuel vehicles, fill up at gas stations, receive deliveries. But what if one day it suddenly vanished? What awaits the billions of people who depend on it? Within just a few hours you would feel it immediately. Lines at gas stations grow longer. Some run out of supply entirely. People rush. People hoard. People argue. Everyone worries about where they will get fuel in the coming days. Within just a few days, there are no more taxis, no more buses, no more cars or motorcycles. Not because people do not want to travel, but because there is no more gasoline or diesel. Ships that carry food and goods can no longer sail. Planes that should transport passengers across countries can no longer fly. Trucks that deliver to supermarkets stop running entirely. This is where the bigger problem begins. Everything slowly grinds to a halt. Even if electric cars exist, they are not enough to replace the entire system. In most countries, electric vehicles are still very few. The majority of cars, trucks, buses, planes, and ships still run on oil. Even the manufacturing and transport of vehicles and their parts require fuel. So the moment oil disappears, it is not just transportation that stops. The entire movement of the economy halts. Work stops. Businesses shut down. Services disappear one by one. As the weeks pass, people are forced to find other ways. People return to simpler modes of travel, walking, cycling. Some even use animals like horses. Electric trains remain useful, especially if powered by renewable energy. In places where rivers or seas must be crossed, rowing boats and sailboats return. For short trips, electric vehicles help where available, but reaching distant places becomes extremely difficult. Many jobs are delayed. Others are permanently shut down. As transportation weakens, there is still food in the early days, but without deliveries it runs out fast. Store shelves empty out, and this is not just a transport problem. Tractors in the fields run on diesel. Most fishing boats depend on fuel. When it disappears, fishing becomes severely limited. The production of fertilizers for crops depends on natural gas. So over time, food production slows down dramatically. Even if there is harvest in the provinces, it cannot reach the cities. In the end, food choices shrink. Supply becomes dangerously limited. For the world to adjust to this situation, it would take approximately 10 to 20 years. 10 to 20 years to build a new system for food production and distribution. That means during that entire period, many families will go hungry. Next to be affected is electricity. Oil is not the primary source of electricity in most countries. In many places, power comes from coal, natural gas, hydroelectric dams, nuclear power, and renewable energy. So electricity would not disappear immediately when oil is gone. But there is a problem. Oil still plays a major role in running some power plants, especially in backup generators, and in transporting the fuel and equipment needed to maintain those plants. When oil vanishes, the entire supply chain gets disrupted, so even with other power sources, the grid becomes unstable. Over time, Brownouts become more frequent. Even areas that rely on renewable energy are affected, because renewable energy alone is not yet enough to meet total demand. No lights, no electric fans, no air conditioning, no heating. Daily life at home becomes a struggle. In schools, classes are disrupted, especially where they depend on lights, computers, and the internet. In hospitals, the situation becomes critical. Life support machines depend on continuous power. Operating room lights depend on continuous power. Medical equipment depends on continuous power. When electricity runs short, hospitals struggle to maintain these services, especially when backup power is also limited. Patients are placed in life-threatening situations. When the equipment supporting their care runs out, lives are lost. Communication is also affected. Cell towers weaken or go dark entirely. Internet signals disappear, because they also need electricity to function. People slowly lose connection with each other, cannot call, cannot message, cannot get information. In business, the operations of many companies stop. Computers stop working. Factories cannot produce. Many stores cannot open. Banks and digital payments are affected. People return to cash or simple barter, trading goods directly for other goods. No transportation. Difficult access to food and electricity. But the problems do not end there. What if next to weaken is the water supply? Water is right there in rivers, streams, lakes, and underground. But in many cities, it does not simply flow to your tap on its own. It depends on water supply systems, treatment plants and pipes, and most importantly, pumps powered by electricity or diesel to push water into homes. That means even if there is plenty of water nearby, energy is still needed to bring it to people. When oil disappears, the transport and supply of fuel is disrupted. Maintenance of water systems breaks down. When electricity weakens, pumps struggle to push water from its source into cities. When the pumps stop working, water pressure drops. Water at the tap slowly disappears. At first, the flow weakens, until one day nothing comes out at all. A terrifying reality in a world where water is the most basic requirement to survive. This is not immediately obvious, but it is one of the most serious effects. Many items used in hospitals are made from materials derived from oil, especially plastics, syringes, gloves, 5 tubes, medicine containers. These are important because they are clean, safe, and disposable to prevent infection. When oil disappears, the production of these items slows down. Supply gradually runs short. As available equipment decreases, hospitals struggle to keep up with patient demand. Some procedures get delayed. Some treatments become limited. This is not a sudden disaster you see all at once, but over time, the situation worsens slowly. A slow but serious health crisis building underneath everything. When oil disappears, people will be confused at first. The modern life we are used to suddenly slows down, because our entire system depends on one single thing. And when that one thing is gone, we are essentially paralyzed. Some experts say if oil suddenly vanished, humanity would return to before oil was widely used. Back to the 1800s. At first, there is anxiety and confusion, uncertainty about where to get food, how to get to work, how to stay connected with others. Over time, stress and anxiety rise because of the lack of basic needs like food, transportation, and electricity. When supply is scarce and many people compete for the same resources, tension rises. Panic buying may occur. Arguments break out. Sometimes disorder, especially when access to resources is unequal. But it is not all chaos. In some places, cooperation also emerges. Neighbors share food. Volunteers help with transportation. Communities find ways to get through together. Governments step in with relief goods and controlled distribution of supplies. As the world changes, human behavior changes too. Some become more aggressive out of fear, but others become more helpful just to survive. Despite the terrifying consequences, there is a silver lining for nature. Air pollution drops. Emissions from vehicles, planes, and factories decrease. The air becomes cleaner. In some places, the sky becomes visibly clearer. Carbon dioxide emissions also decrease, slowing down the rate of global warming. In the oceans, the risk of oil spills drops, giving marine life a chance to recover. But things do not fix themselves immediately. There are other sources of pollution like coal and other fossil fuels, and with the energy shortage, those may actually be used even more. There are benefits to nature, but they are not enough to immediately restore balance. There are potential replacements for oil. Biofuel, renewable energy like solar and wind, materials from plants and biomass, but these cannot replace oil overnight. Time is needed to build the facilities, stabilize supply, and allow the entire system to adjust. Even the production of solar panels and wind turbines requires energy and materials still connected to fossil fuels today. So if oil suddenly disappeared, these alternatives could not immediately fill the gap. This is why experts say the most practical approach is not a sudden shift, but a gradual one, a slow and steady transition from oil to cleaner and more sustainable energy. So while that transition has not yet fully happened, preparation is necessary. Because if oil suddenly disappears one day, the collapse would be heavy, chaotic, and terrifying.